And we are going to talk, we're going to begin with introductions here at the table and we're going to talk for a few minutes. Then we're going to turn the word for questions. Also, we're going to come around with the microphone too. We're going to start inside the city chambers first. We will not open up to the Zoom participants for questions until the regular meeting gets a chance that wants to speak or gets a question from the meeting. Then we will open it up to Zoom participants out of that. You should be able to hear them. You can get them down. You should be able to hear them and ask the questions as well. And they can hear you. So I'm going to turn it over now to the instructor.
Everybody hear me? So I can't control this right now. Make it. I'm going to stand here like you know me. Probably first meeting up. I've got some people with me. I've got Nate. He's our superintendent from Markman, and I've got Mike and Don from EGLE. Mike made the trip from the UP here to the office today, and Don continued all the time. So just got to as obviously we are called here to talk about the drinking water quality and specifically the taste and odor issues that have been ongoing. This spring has been worse than the worst. And obviously this has been going on for a very, very long time. As you know, we have two sources of water. The primary source has always been the lake ever since it's been in service since the 1940s. And up until about 2008, when we were able to find the groundwater and use that, and that's really our primary source now. Typically, we're using 60 to 70% groundwater most of the year in the summertime when we know when the maybe conditions get worse in the spring and fall. We try to bump that up to as high as we can without straining or stressing that out for too much. Obviously, this past spring has been very bad, and we have the data to prove that with numbers and people's comments, concerns, and complaints. So I wanted to bring these guys down to kind of talk a little bit about this from their perspective, and a lot of take questions. And I'll take some comments as well after they're done. But I'm going to pass it on to Mike and take it from here.
Thank you, Will. If you don't mind, I can stand up. Been in the car for a long time doing this. And I'm glad we have so many people here. I talk about drinking water engineering and I was told that everybody was trying to go to sleep. So I'm glad we have so many people that are interested that showed up. First and foremost, just a few objectives. We're here from EGLE to focus on solutions tonight. I pledge that we will be professional and courteous to you all and just ask the same from the audience. Give us your tough questions. That's what we're here for, to answer those and focus on the solutions. And then also to build partnerships here between the state and city and residents. Also objectives, we want to make sure to deliver the facts and dispel any misinformation that might be out there related to the drinking water. And then as dry as the topic can be, I think it might be helpful just to give a little bit of context to the regulatory framework. EGLE is hopefully most people are familiar, but EGLE is the regulatory agency that oversees and regulates the drinking water throughout the state. Okay, so just following my outline here. So first of all, EGLE is very aware of the water quality concerns in Adrian. I've been with the state a little over 25 years and maybe the last 10 years or so in this capacity. And we have had questions, complaints, concerns come in periodically over the years from Adrian. So we have a awareness of that. So we're not here to dispute that. We know that there are some issues there. And on that note, we urge the residents to continue letting us know and let the city know if you have issues. We can't focus on solutions if we don't know what the problems are. So keep those coming. And the concerns that we've been receiving, and Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've largely been related to taste and odors related to the drinking water here. However, I think this is a key thing. If anybody suspects that they might be getting sick due to the water, we are not medical people, so you need to contact your primary care doctor. Notify the city about that, and then also, I can repeat this, but Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has a hotline that their it's the toxicology and environmental health hotline, and that number, and I can repeat that if we need to, but it's 800-648-6942. And that's, they're answering that Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So again, I can repeat that if I need to, but if anybody has health concerns, dial that number. Sure. Will asked if I could say what EGLE stands for. It's Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. Formerly DEQ, we have several divisions that do landfills, wetlands, wastewater, air quality. Don and I are in the drinking water division. Okay, so another big question that's probably on a lot of people's mind, you just want to get out and mention is the water safe to drink anyway? So when we get that question, we look at the reams of water quality data that they are collecting routinely, and we compare that to state and federal drinking water standards. And all of the data that we have shows that the water meets the standards. And what I want to mention is, if at any point the city failed to meet any of those standards, they are required by state and federal law to notify the residents. And that's something that we police. So if we have a sample result that exceeded, we would issue a violation to the city, and they would get a violation letter, and the violation letter would say, and you need to notify the public by such and such time. And if they don't do that, they would get another violation. So I just wanted, again, to kind of touch on the regulatory structure there. Okay, this, I could talk for 2 hours on how the drinking water regulations are set up, but I'm not gonna do that to you guys. It's sleep, but I just wanted to touch on one part of it. First of all, the city is regulated under the Michigan Safe Drinking Water Act 399. And that, our Michigan Safe Drinking Water Act mirrors the federal Safe Drinking Water Act. We have some extra things in it that are above and beyond what the federal rule is, but our rule, all of the states have to have rules that are as strict or more strict than the federal rule. So that is the law that we are bound by. And then the regulatory framework incorporates what we call a multi-barrier approach. So there are several layers of protections in there. And again, I could go all day, but just think of things like source water protection, treatment, disinfection, sampling, certified operators. All those things are layered in there, so we don't have any single point of failure. But one important point out of the regulations that I want to point out that's very relevant here, and not just Adrian, but the concept of primary standards and secondary standards. So I mentioned the city is meeting all the primary drinking water standards. That's a fact. You can look at all their sampling results. but there are also, EPA also sets secondary standards, and secondary standards are for aesthetic quality of the water, so taste, odors, colors, things like that. EGLE has the authority and the obligation to enforce the primary standards, but we don't have authority to enforce secondary standards. That becomes a local decision. Some states have it, but, and I just want to give some examples of these secondary standards. How many of you have ever, maybe been up north somewhere where you've been on a campground or a cottage or something where you drank out of a well and the water was red, it tastes like iron? Anyone ever experienced that? Okay, it's in Michigan a lot of it. So iron has a secondary standard. Some people can't stand that taste. We have a lot of wells in the state that, and city water systems that have that. Another example, is hydrogen sulfide that gives you that rotten egg odor. Sometimes that's in groundwater. Again, it's safe to drink, but it's like stinky. Manganese causes black colored water. Tannins can give you that root beer colored water. So it's not uncommon in the state of Michigan to have water that's both safe to drink and aesthetically objectionable. Does that mean we need to tolerate it? Not necessarily, but I'm saying that is, both of those things can be true. You can have water that meets the primary standards that you can consume without any restrictions. That's not harmful, but can be aesthetically objectionable. Okay, so next I wanted, and I'm jumping around here a little bit, but next I wanted to talk about some basic facts about algae in the surface water. So, some species of algae release compounds to the water that contain MIB and geosmin. MIB is the initial for a long organic chemical that I'm not sure I can pronounce. But there's certain, and just like there's different species of fish in the water, there are different species of algae in the water. And some of these species, they release these compounds that are not harmful, but they do cause taste and odor issues, and they can have very strong odors at very small concentrations. The city tests for these compounds monthly, weekly that they're doing. That's not a requirement to complete. They're doing that voluntarily, and their results confirm there are times when the MIB exceed those thresholds. So it kind of confirms, people are detecting it. And so we know that that's in there at certain times, and I said sometimes it exceeds, it's a seasonal phenomenon, so I understand. All right, and then speaking of algae, the other thing that I wanted to mention is there are other species. Again, there's different species of fish, there's different species of algae. There are other classes of algae species that when they die, they release toxins. Those are, maybe people have heard of harmful algal blooms, tabs, or cyanobacteria or cyanotoxins. And those have been tested here in Adrian through our state program. Adrian's been doing this voluntarily since 2021. And according to our records, they've never had a detection of the cyanotoxins or the algae toxins in their finished water that is distributed to the city. So it's an important distinction. We know we've got the taste and odor algae compounds in the water. We've never detected the toxic forming algae. I'll also point out that the city puts those results on their website, so that's available for public. Okay, I wanted to just make a few notes about just mention that the city meets the regulatory requirements for water sampling and water analysis. And I can go into a ton more detail if people have questions, and I imagine they might. I'm not gonna dive into it right now, but I just want to point out EGLE has a very prescriptive schedule. So we mail them a monitoring schedule early every year that says you must sample for these things at these locations on this schedule. And if they miss that, they get a monitoring violation and you are notified about that. And then when they do the sampling, we check every sample, we check for three things. We're checking, did they get it at the correct location and at the correct time? We check the result, was the result over the limit? And then we also check, was it sent to a certified lab? If they send it to just any old lab that's not certified, violation, we don't accept that. And we check all of that. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to mention is, okay, they got this big water treatment plant here. Why is the treatment plant taking care of these LG compounds that I mentioned? Well, like most water treatment plants in the state of Michigan, the plant was designed primarily to remove turbidity. That's like the cloudiness in the water, and turbidity is where any waterborne pathogens might be, like bacteria. So the plant is designed to remove turbidity, remove hardness, and provide disinfection. And the city does a very good job on that. I wanted to point out that they meet our optimization goals for turbidity removal. That's above and beyond what the regulatory limits are. But there are limitations to the design of the plant. The plant was not designed to remove that geosmin and MIB, those LG compounds, and that's an important concept there. They have some tools at their disposal. They have some additional chemicals, powdered activated carbon, and some other oxidants that they can use, but it's, you know, it might help reduce it some, but not consistently and reliably remove it. And in order to do that, the city has, how many years ago was that study?
It's 2019.
In 2019, they went and did a study to see what it would take. And it would be substantial upgrades to the treatment plant in order to make improvements where they could reliably and consistently remove those compounds. So it can be done. It just would, you know, come at a cost to the community. One other thing I want to mention about the plant, we have gotten some calls and concerns about the operators and personnel. As I mentioned in the beginning with the Safe Drinking Water Act, we have requirements. Not anybody can go sit at the control panel at the plant. You have to have a state certification, and the city meets those requirements with the operations staff that they have. When Don goes out and does his formal review of the system every so many years, he is verifying that. So key takeaway points, and then I will end the mic here, is city and EGLE are aware of the taste and odor concerns and attribute them to certain species of algae. All the EGLE data indicates the water meets public health standards for consumption. The city's treatment plant could need improvements to consistently eliminate taste and odor control concerns. And then EGLE's authority is limited here, but we are committed to continue working with the city and the community to facilitate a long-term solution. So I imagine there may be some questions before we get to that. I believe Tim was gonna speak with, I'm sorry, Bill. Is gonna speak on it for the city.
Do you want to say anything?
Sure. Hi, my name is Don Brady. I think I may have talked to some of you and exchanged emails. We're gonna try and answer questions today, but I just wanted to let everyone know that we're happy to talk to people one-on-one. We get busy sometimes and we might seem short or rushed on the phone, but we will try to answer your questions. I know my phone number has been posted online, but I will give it out again. My number is 231-942-1386, and after tonight, we're happy to talk to anybody one-on-one to answer more questions.
So I just kind of wanted to go back, turn a little bit and talk about this thing that done in 2019. And there were several options given in that, and they all were very expensive. I mean, multiple millions of dollars, and they would all take multiple years to do. If that's something that the community wants to do, we can certainly proceed with that. Tetra Tech did this study for us, and I have already been in contact with them to update it, to give me some updated prices. He has advised me that there's no new technology out there, so it's going to be the same types of processes that were on the 2019 study, but we're going to get some updated cost estimates. And he said that would probably take up 3 to 4 weeks. So I'll present something to the commission at the next meeting to get approval to move forward with that. So we'll get started working on that for sure. There's been some talk about, water lines and our water mains. We actively replace water mains. We actively replace water services. Obviously, the big push over the last several years has been the lead service line replacement. Our community is fortunate that we don't have, full lead service lines. We have a lot of galvanized service lines. So we've been actively replacing those in the last, really for a long time. We picked up that pace in the last 5 years. The water main replacement, our well maintenance, our wells are getting old. The interesting thing is we met with our hydrogeologist, Dan, who's been working with us ever since that well was put in service, and we run those hard. We run them 24 hours a day. Most communities only run them 8 hours a day. So the question I asked was, what's the average lifespan for a well like this? And he said it's about 50 years. But that's based on 8 hours a day. Those have been in service since 2008. So that was what, 18, 19 years ago? And believe it or not, 18 years ago. So realistically, those wells have quickly got to the 50 years of use on those. So we've been in communication with EGLE about adding a fifth well so that we have a well as a backup in case one goes down. And that's what happened this spring. We cleaned 2 wells. One of them went pretty well. The second one did not. The well was down for about 5 or 6 weeks total. So that unfortunately adds to the problem. Part of that study recommended that even during the warm weather months, that we limit the production in the well to that well field to about 2 million gallons a day. We're pushing it to 4 to 5 right now. So we're straining it, but it's doing well. It's doing okay. We're gonna have to clean another well either probably this fall or early winter, but we're gonna try and go as long as we can around. I don't want to be about. But we ended up working with people on getting a fifth well, so that's in the pipeline, and then we'll be get that done within the next, year and a half. So, but we are limited on what we can draw. I've said this before, even with this bag of money, we're not going to be able to take everything we need out of there. It is just not going to support it. And we've been told, and I mentioned this before, that your groundwater is in this area. So there's just not a lot of places to look. But we can talk a little bit about that as we get some questions coming in and some possible, talk about some solutions. And then that's starting to get back, give us some more answers. I do post all of our monthly operating reports on the website. I've said before, I get behind on that sometimes. I think I'm a month behind. But those monthly operating reports have all the data. Every testing we do goes on that report. It gets sent to EGLE at the beginning of the month. That's our requirement. I think it has to be there by like the 10th or 9th or 10th of the month. And if we don't get it done on time, that's a violation. So we get that done, and then I try to get them on the website so everybody has access to those. all of our operating are certified. So that's good, and, the other thing, the algae control, so we are permitted to add copper sulfate to the lake to help with algae control. And we do that twice a year. We have to do it, it's very heavily controlled, we can only do it at certain times and a certain, concentration. And that will be done the week of July 6th,
The 7th, yeah.
the 7th, and then 2 weeks after that.
Yes.
And yeah, the week of the 21st, and then we will do it again in September. And that is designed to help with the algae growth in the lake. So we did take samples, just to give you an idea, you know, Mike mentioned that these are parts per trillion. That's a very small number of everything. And a lot of people can sense that down to I grade between 5 and 10 parts per trillion. So that's a very, very, very small number. We take the samples from the lake. We take it from away from our blend, which is where the lake water and the well water feed together, and then we take it in the tap. So 3 weeks ago, the lake was over 800 parts per trillion, and our tap was 110, 115, something like that. Super high, right? And 10 times what I would like to, I want it to be zero, but it's 10 times what I would consider like an over than over threshold. This week we took a sample, the lake was less than 10 and the tap was less than 1. So hopefully people have seen some improvement. That's obviously not the fix, the total fix. This is what we've dealt with for a long time. The seasonal, you know, we get a good stretch, then it'll get bad, then it'll get good. And it does seem like the last 2 years have been very bad. And those numbers that we got today, I don't think I've seen numbers that low in probably 2 or 3 years. I think 2022 was the last year that I saw numbers that low. Hopefully that's a good sign. I don't know. And obviously we you know, water main replacement. I look at this today, and in the last 7 years, we water mains, we've spent about $2 million on water main replacement, and about uh, 800,000 on service line replacements, because those are required, we have to do those, we don't have a choice, so, which is good, we want to get them out, we want the galvanized lines out of there. But we do actively replace water mains and water services every year, as well as the regular maintenance that we do at the plants, at the well field, and so on and so forth. Cleaning wells has gotten ridiculous in prices. I mean, we used to pay 20 grand for the well, now we're paying 50, 40, it's doubled, and just in the last 3 years. So it's just crazy the way inflation is taking us real crazy. You guys have anything else to add? Want to just kind of open for questions? So we'll just open it for questions. Feel free to ask.
Yeah, just a reminder, we're gonna start with the site, July 7th, maybe just ask that we have really a chance, so if you want to go in, maybe you're able to protect the piano, take it away from all this stuff, not contribute to the conversation as well, okay? Okay, we can say your answer, because so I just have a few some questions. What I think is in my mind, just for my reference. And so April 2020. And it just pretty much says required sleeping frequency 2 samples per quarter. Number of samples taken is 0. When else samples should have been taken was 71 2019 to 7/31 2019. And the days the samples were taken or 9/1 of 2019 and 9/30 of 2019. So that's my first question, why, we have employees there that have been on who actually does the samples. And it seems like these were probably should have been done at this kind of season. And then I have another one that it's the date for sample should have been taken on Q4 of 2021 through 9/30 of 21. And sample was not taken until 12/19 of 21. I would say, participating in the water study that, Wayne State University did. And I also brought in samples to be that for my sampling, because I can get samples of the holes here. But my results was like 4 pages. I have one that you received that,
Was that the one that you?
I received this February 4th, 2022, because after the this and then COVID hit, so it's about to do it. Okay, samples were collected on June 22nd of 2019, and then again on September 14th of 2016. So I don't know if any of you received this report.
No, I don't.
Wayne State.
No. Oh, was that? Yeah, we did receive that.
It's like, it's like $100,000. They gave me the site. You said I didn't get it?
Yeah, we got it back in 20. Was it 2021?
Approximately.
And then I guess we have some comment on this, and I forgot the name, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Mike.
You brought up that you know, maybe health issues. That they may call us number. Yeah, they have health concerns. I wasn't gonna share this tonight, but since you brought it up, I guess. In 2017, we just got really well. And he got so ill that he was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And I'm not going to say this because the lawyer is not going to tell me this. But since you brought up health concerns, I think it's important that I share this. So his body was so bad that he had to actually 7 years old, which is really put a strain on him financially. And then if that was bad enough in 2019, yeah, in 2017 he was diagnosed. 2019 I was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And so my oldest son, I went to the University of Michigan Hospital, and he had to do that history. Like, who would your family say cancer, that type of stuff. And when he found out all of his parents had kidney cancer, they called in another doctor, who was the chief doctor at the University of Michigan. And he came in and he said, son, are you sure that, both your parents have kidney cancer? And he said, yes, sir. He said, well, let me tell you, 2 people in the same house do not ever do the same thing. We've been in our house for 35 years. So he said it's either wild person environment, which is a really huge concern. I have 20 fingers and I'm you guys have heard of me, but we need to do something smart, not just for my family. We haven't used the water center challenge since 2017 when I was diagnosed. And that's alone is very expensive. So I guess my question to you, I've heard a lot of people say that they don't taste or smell anything wrong with water, and still drink it, which I'm tickled that. But there are a lot of us that are afraid and won't use the water. So we're not going to use the benefits. But how about if those in the meantime, so we can figure out a way to fix this, however that would be. How about if we use some white money and buy some of the reverse osmosis to those folks who want them? Again. And then Because I think we're all very some people, that are concerned. And it's one night too long, we tried to do something in 2018. And I don't think much time as the rest of you, or maybe it's because of money that they didn't have. Or they didn't make it happen. I don't think there's a deal because, and you tell it was right. Not at all, not even the state, you know, or to replace slave money, but it's time to do something about this water. And it's beyond the taste of stone. That's my opinion. And then, you know, let's come up with a solution. I mean, all you folks for EGLE, let's come up with a solution. That's all we're asking. You know, not a quick fix, not a, you know, oh, we put this filtration system and our own stuff are good then. That I don't think these people are gonna be satisfied. So I appreciate it.
If I could, just one comment, thank you for sharing that. And I want to emphasize again, I'm gonna repeat that phone number. If you suspect you or family members or neighbors are having health effects due to drinking water, again, EGLE's role, what we do is we review all the monitoring data that they submit and we compare it to the state and federal standards and determine if it's in compliance. It is in compliance. But if you suspect that, again, you, family member, neighbor, whatever is getting sick because of the drinking water, contact Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And again, the phone number 800-648-6942. They can reach out. They have a program where they'll send people out, they'll consult with you, find out what's going on. And they will do some water sampling. And, you know, in some of the communities they've gotten into, I think it's even resulted, and this is not my area, so I'm getting a little out of my lane, but that it's resulted in providing filters or at least recommending this is what you might need. So they do that. I want to encourage people again, if they suspect any health issues, to reach out.
I appreciate that, but it's, you know, if we're taking away that somebody is sick and has some serious health issues, then you should not. Too late to go. I mean, it's just, you know, and it's just like, I don't know how to think about this. I mean, that's just, it's definitely, let's just, thank you.
Michael, I want to say that I spoke with Alex today. She's the principal and I told her that you know, my doctor in mastonologist that I do have criminal review. Tried to get the doctor moved here for grand investigation. She just missed it. Also, when I asked for water, I tested she just so I appreciate you offering it for the mechanisms not I don't
Okay. Sure.
Okay, good. Good evening. Yeah, we're here. You're here to care about our families and if you are big. And because we care, we need to have an open conversation. For years, residents of that are water concerns. We have heard explanations. We have heard reasons. We have heard why solutions take time. Yeah, here we are. Still having the same conversation. There is a mistake. You can have excuses, or you can have results. You can't have both. Tonight, it's not a time of spending money. It's not about trying to politics. It's not about personalities. It's not about just strong. It's about the souls. The people of Adrian deserve clean, safe, reliable drinking water. That should not be a controversial statement. It should not be an initial goal. It should be the minimum standard for every community in America. When families turn on their faucets, they should have confidence in what comes out. When job creators consider investigating, they should know that their city is addressing these challenges head on. When young families are deciding whether to raise their children here or elsewhere, they should see a community committed to protecting their health and their future. Tonight, I would like to challenge both our elected officials and our citizens in this room. Let us not leave this building until we have identified a path forward. Not another study, not another excuse, not another promise that someday, a path forward. Specifically, I'm asking this. I'm asking for three written options of a good solution, a better solution, and the best solution. For each option, I don't know. And I feel advice to do it. What it will cost? How will it be funded? How long will it take to complete? And who will be responsible for making sure it's done? Those answers should not be in a report. They are in a committee or postponed to another meeting months from now. They should be presented in the clearance to every resident. Once those options are presented, other people are not ready. Let's discuss them. Let's debate them. Let's improve them. But above all else, let us move forward. Because what we can't afford is more drift. We can't afford more delay. We can't afford to spend another year studying problems that have been already consumed far too many years. Every great meeting eventually reaches a moment when it must decide whether to live with its problem or so. I believe leader is better than having undrinkable water. I believe Adrian is capable of solving this. And I believe the people in this room have intelligence, creativity, and determination to find a solution if we choose to work together. So I'm asking our elected officials to lead. Present the options, present the cost, present the timelines, present the plan. And then let us as a community hold that and ourselves accountable for achieving it. Because the citizens of future do not need our explanations or excuses. They need a solution. And that's time to begin tonight. Well, maybe for county, for big honest with you. Number one, you mentioned about testing state and federal. Is it true that we have different standards versus other counties for testing?
I didn't quite get the question.
Are testing standards the same as Wayne County, for example, or like Michigan? Is my question to you, sir.
County.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, all public water systems in Michigan are subject to the same set of regulations, the same standards. The monitoring requirements will vary from system to system depending on their source water, depending on their treatment, depends. Some cities buy water, wholesale treated water from other communities, so they don't have as much sampling to do. I will say, because City of Adrian, part of their source water is surface water, they're subject to a most stringent set of standards, you know, in terms of, say, drinking water act, so.
Okay, but there are definitely we go to because we can our choice instead of the safest best water standards testing seem to be a little bit high.
They're subject to the same set of regulations, the same set of standards.
Okay, that's a big reason. My business also was you mentioned it just now, bringing their services, purchasing water from other, and, still might need to have the treatment done with, this field was running into a similar situation on 5 years ago, and we can get water. Is that a feasible possibility in interim first wait, several years as the state center to put in and our answer the water source of be sucked up into those things. Before it's too late.
Okay, so I think I heard you're inquiring about possibly purchasing water from elsewhere. You mentioned Blissfield, they're not purchasing, they're still using their own water source locally.
Yeah. Situation where we had to, some counties have temporarily purchased water from other communities, and I'm not aware of that. Like you just said.
Yeah.
For reasons, so.
And I like where you're thinking there, the state, from the state perspective, we have a lot of communities throughout the state that struggle with their water systems, either the water quality, the water quantity. Some communities just struggle to have the revenue to maintain the systems that they have. So we are always pushing communities to look at partnership opportunities like purchasing water. I'm guessing, Will, that might have been looked at in the study, but just because of your location, my guess would, because I've seen some of these studies, it's very expensive to pipe and pump water long distances, so I'm guessing that would be a much higher cost option, but it's certainly something to look at.
And my next question is, so we have over the last 9 years that I've been here, I've always heard during this time, water tank is low, so we have some water less than tanks full. We have here underground. So that doesn't, some of us are going to do where I can't use the water. Some nasty grit on my teeth at least. So a lot of us are purchasing gross amounts of water right now just to be able to give our animals, brush our teeth, and cook. Is there a possible solution that we can possibly sort of immersed by the state until we can come to a decent solution? Since we're also paying a base, paying $100 a month, other fixes that are is there anything that the city or the state or the environmental agency is able to do for us, like they did for the fishing?
That's something we can look into. I'm not aware of any programs, short of a major emergency. We don't. Usually it's like if there's an emergency declared, then through emergency systems, that's when water gets deployed and everything. We can look into that, but I'm not aware of any programs like that for this situation.
Thank you very much.
Personally, I'm getting tired of all the explanations. I don't want to hear any more controversy. I'm here on stage because I don't take a shot. I pay more money. If I want to spend something as that kind of that really sad. I'm all sewage from I was thinking orange and the fresh concrete that smells the worst. I don't care if it tastes like I want to drink it. Is there any dad here that I can supervise my shower with Jack lemon juice? What's the answer? Can we follow the Adrian of failed experiment? Yeah. That's the problem. Let's stop the perfume on the pig. Can we move on to something else that might actually work, which not wasting money on the same thing over and over again? It just keeps reoccurring. Every time I call, I'm gonna say it's your over, it's that, and you remember the other people, blah, 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 blah. I want to do something new, something different. I don't want to hear the numbers. I don't want to hear what's safe. I want to hear what is new that is being done. Like the community failed to bear. Let's move on to something different. Good evening, I'm sorry about the late, what's the state? There's something for the presentations. Well, we mentioned that they have their, you know, have extra update information and costs. I have noticed a bit of cost and how it would be. My assumption is that it's going to come from us as taxpayers. So that concern, especially in this current economy that is very unstable. The water is saying, so I'm concerned about paying for something that if we don't need, I would really be interested in knowing what it is.
Yeah, so, so basically what's the best? And obviously, getting away from the lake would be the best. We all know that surface water is terrible to treat just because of the organics. With wells, well water would be the best. You gotta find it, right? You gotta find out where the water is, and you gotta get it. That could probably be in the hundreds of millions of dollars to do something like just because putting pipe in the ground costs money. And it would be years. I was really recently a community in the Chicago area. They did a project to get water from Lake Michigan, and I believe it was like 60 miles. It was a 400 million. So ideally, if we could find some groundwater in the area, then that's in our, retail spot of our level versus that's probably at the top of the list of treatment methods and still using the lake. My guess is you're talking 15 to 20 million. And in terms of who pays for it, we can obviously get grants to pay for it or some of it. I can get to pay for all of it and some of it. There are local interest fund loans to the state that you can finance it over 20 years. But ultimately it would fall on, the rate payers, not the taxpayers, but the rate payers, those are the taxpayers. So that would be, the best treatment for the lake itself. There's other options. Even our, if you read about it, 99% removal of everything. So you're still not getting everything out. So there's still at least somewhat behind. There's method like ozone. That's probably, and I have this study in front of me, $5 to $8 million. And then you're still getting the lake water. You're not getting groundwater. So much easier to handle that kind of cost over a long period of time. But again, now the actual effectiveness of that would be less than the other one. So those are the top three things that I mean, if I had a switch, I had the wells and had that water, that would be ideal because you don't have to worry about new lands. It's not here. So we have to figure it out.
So technically, we're right back to where we just basically don't have enough water to drink at this point, so why would we bring in water?
Yes, my point is, you have to go far enough away to where the water is available. So I can see the farther you go, the more it's gonna cost to get it there. That's it. And if we're right.
I just want to take a shower.
I got you.
I care behind.
I was just gonna comment on that too as well. I think you had mentioned, and I like the way you put it, can you get, I'm paraphrasing, but can you package it up? What the options are, and what it's gonna cost. Yeah, and I think that's, putting myself in your shoes, that seems reasonable, and I believe the study has, maybe given the overall cost, but maybe not translated it to what it would mean for bills. At EGLE, if we control the money, and we could come here and, give the city a grant, I would gladly do that. But the reality is, we have communities across the state, the infrastructure needs across the state far exceed the funds that are available, so most likely to do these improvements, and, there's a pathway to do it. It would be, most likely getting low interest loans through the state, and as Will said, that, the entire water system is funded by the ratepayers, so, that cost to pay that debt off would go on to the ratepayers. I mean, you might get the lottery and get some grant money in there, but it's highly competitive. So that's the, kind of financial reality.
So, and I was just like, so, first, it is actually horrible. I went to the city in June for that. I moved out here from 36, I'm 42. 3 years ago, I got diagnosed with stage 3 disease. Completely fine, done up here. We cannot feed any of our animals. We've had 6 fish die right in the middle of the bacterial infection on their bodies. So, yes, let's get it, Michigan, you're not doing anything either, so we need something more direct from our city. And if the state can't replace the money that we are spending monthly, and I can only think that much everybody is, I know mine is not numbers. There needs to be the only mistake instead of do. But all we keep hearing is how much it's going to cost. I don't think anybody cares how much it's going to cost. It means that we can get shackles. I'm curious over the last 5 years, how many grants, small loans have been looked into? Because I think Google, where there was $181.4 billion allocated to help Michigan communities like ours in the last 5 years. So once again, we run the plan, and not just so we don't know to much money. And I think you're all on the point now that you're getting something frustrated and it has to be on the path. I moved out of my years to live here, I bought a house here. Now I have to sit and make lifestyle now because we're gonna be from number 2. Because right now, sure, it's okay, but it's exactly what I said about 18 months. Yes, and then every single one of those people had their family and their water man shut off, or situation, they put it on solar. So we wanted to bring people to it again. We had nothing that we wanted to do metals like rock. It's just not going to happen. And I would love to see our community. That's why we down here from Detroit. And I think I missed it very much so much. I'm trying to learn their generation. So each week we have to go on. Knowing that this problem that existed years ago, and you're building time.
I don't know if it just for.
I don't have any expertise in that. We have, as I mentioned earlier, EGLE has different divisions. Our water resources division has an aquatic nuisance control program. That is the permitting for, like algae and weed control and stuff, but, you know, if the city hasn't, we could check with the contractors to do the applications for the water, because by application, that mean apply the chemicals, because they usually have knowledge on the different types of chemicals and which ones are most effective. So if that hasn't been done, it could, the crux of it is, there might be chemicals that are more, effective at killing those algae, but again, we're drinking that water, so we can't, there's a whole bunch of chemicals we don't want to be putting in there because they might go right through the treatment plant. So the chemical that they are using is one that's okay to use for the drinking water source.
You just described exactly how stupid the copper's whole thing, you use that system before it ends up in our systems instead of it fills out inside of our bodies. It's just not very awesome, so.
I can't really speak to that. I mean, again, our sister division that approves it, they permit that with the knowledge that this is in a water body that gets treated. Copper, there's the city tests for copper in the distribution system and their levels. I don't know it off the top of my head, but are not.
Yeah.
They don't like to see the limits or anything.
Sure.
But like copper sulfate is I would say a much more basic chemical than there's a lot of sort of exotic organic ones that can be used in lakes that we don't want to be putting those under the waters. So it's probably, that's likely why. So
I'm gonna have Nate talk a little bit about that.
So, regarding the copper sulfate, the way that we add that is we have a certain amount of, pounds of copper sulfate crystals that we add to a certain amount of acreage of Lake Adrian. And we do it in 2 stages, like Will said. And the way we do that is I have to notify the state, several weeks before we apply it. We apply it via a boat, sort of trolling through those areas. And then 24 hours later, we test for any increase in copper coming into the intake. So we have never seen an increase on that. It would trigger a lot of things if we did. And so we do the furthest from the intake first, and then we do the closest. We have 2, we call them zones, and we do that same procedure for both of them. So we spread them apart. And also when I do this, there's a separate division for environmental information. And I have to log weather reports, wind direction, the exact time we apply it. There are a lot of things that we are tracking to make sure that this is operating only on the lake in a way that it will not carry over to our finished product. We want to eliminate that algae without having the chemical that's doing the work make its way to our drinking water. So we do work very hard to make sure that that is not something that we're going to consume. We have not seen it happen yet. We test it, we follow all the regulations. We've never seen, I've tested it just in months when we haven't applied anything, just to see what a baseline would look like. It looks identical to when we apply. But I do understand how it could make you nervous because it is used for a lot of different more aggressive uses, and that can cause some confusion.
And just to clarify real quick, the points of application are way the lake where the creek comes in and the intake is way out of the time into the lake, so it's far away from the activity.
That's what I wanted to do. I got a point. And my mom is at the water resource division, it's the one that deals with, drinking watershed and that's water. There's quite a few farms that are right here on the creek and a lot of big farms. And I feel that they're really doing themselves justice and putting so much grass and woods between them and the water. They've got insecticides, they've got animal feces and urine that is brought off into the creek, which is then coming to Lake Erie. So I mean, at some point in time, we really should have had Tiffany Meyer, which I think is probably here. From the resource, water resource. Here to talk about, because I would really like to know how often it's tired of this stuff. And how much of this is getting me, well, not getting is getting me into the plate. It really wants to get into the plate. And the other thing is, it's like, I know a lot of these farmers are probably just like, they're very wealthy. And I can't imagine the discipline coming from that level. And if it is, why can't they be fined? For their work that's getting into our living and causing these problems. So, I mean, I don't know if you're taking on that, about the problems coming down from, Wolf Creek. I used to live up that way, I live in the creek there, really nasty. And, I'm sure that it, has a lot of issues,
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's something that we struggle with as an agency is balancing environmental protection with business interest. There's a permit.
What's right in life?
Uh,
I'm not
What?
talking about fancy person I know.
Amen to that.
Is that the same guidelines that were magic and made for the state, or the same regulations that got us here today?
I'm just trying to address the question. I think life is priceless. But we as a department, we implement the laws, we don't make the laws. And so there's those kinds of concerns are often addressed through the community and local watershed groups. There is a river raising watershed group. I would encourage you all to get involved with that. There's a lot that can be done in terms of adopting ordinances that is actually more effective than a regulation from the state of Michigan. And if you wanted to look at how these kind of issues play out, you could look at the concentrated animal feeding operation permit that the state of Michigan, our department is trying to implement. And you could see just all the back and forth and all the complication that goes with trying to get something like that done.
It's both three of them. We raise the numbers kind of like someone else's problem, not ours. So
Well-
it's both three. And that's why I'm saying it's like, we were involved in the last thing, like making, state, state university. And so, when we discovered, and from our times that we had been coming from somewhere, and been coming from, obviously, Wolf Creek, that's the one. And so that's what I'm saying, there's an awful lot of big farmers out that way, and there are a lot of everybody out there. And it's like, there's something better getting done. And everything's got to be fine, and I can't imagine my city is going to have these guys, because it's polluting our life, and it's probably not happening. So it's like, I don't know, I know you guys can't answer that. But it's another whole section of your guys', people.
Yeah, I could not check in with me on that in terms of the sampling that could be done. There's a lot of that goes on. There's a long list of places that need to be sampled, but maybe
Well, I think it was, I have 20 minutes that I talked about. And I can't remember which one you guys said that, maybe it wasn't. It's like, someone said that they didn't get the water jet that even better. Since like, in 2019 or 2020 or something like that, that was a long time. And I'm thinking, how did they let it go? So long, like, it's not being tested like yearly or like every 6 months or something,
Yeah. We might. Yeah. And, I think your point is extremely valid. And I don't think it's any secret, the surface water component of their source is far from needed. But it's necessary right now. They cannot meet the demands of the city without using it. But yeah, we want to protect that source of as much as we can. As I said at the beginning, we are bound by the limits of the law. If I could be an emperor and just do whatever, I would love to go and be able to protect.
Not you guys, it's not usually another students. You know, what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's another division, but
Yeah, it's like, no, someone.
right.
Yeah.
But we'll take that comment back to Tiffany and see.
It's like not online, and on top of it, they have.
Yeah, and again, I'm getting way out of my lane, but there are point source, we regulate the water, wastewater going into a stream at a point source, and then there's non-point source, which would be like water coming off the field. And the regulations are different, and I don't even know if there are regulations that require testing and everything. Some of those agricultural properties I think are kind of just a best practice sort of thing, but I can't really speculate because I'm not really familiar with those rules, but we'll take that back.
Yes, so our coworkers in water resource division, they keep an eye on the water quality in the state of Michigan, but they can't sample everywhere every year. They kind of have a rotation where they go around and they resample every few years, but a lot of that sampling can be done through a local group, like I was saying. And if you don't feel like the River Raisin watershed group is active enough, maybe there's a way that we could work with you to develop something for both of you. And we could talk to Tiffany about that as well. That does involve a lot of local participation, get something like that going, but oftentimes those watershed groups are very effective in terms of implementing best practices to reduce contamination.
I know I'm not gonna be on the meeting, but I know that quite a few years back, for testing design events, and one of the big, the flood plan, you know, going on. One of the farmers, was stabbing his farm hands to do that. So, you know, just my very dangerous way, I think that they have the right to, you know, we are not, we are not. So I don't know, just saying, it's like, I don't know what these farmers have, but they think that they own it all, but, you know, it's like, I don't think it's like, take it from them.
I'd like to address that a little bit. So I've worked at the plant for 10 years and I was head of the laboratory for about 6 of those years. And the majority of my time was spent monitoring the health of the lake. And that includes upstream, looking for, we do various tests to look for E. coli and general bacteria and nitrate, which is a good indicator of fertilizer runoff. So those all lead to something called eutrophication for the lake, which is just a phosphorus nitrate rich lake, which promotes blooms. So I'm trying to see, is there a source where all of a sudden this is introduced, and then try and see where that is coming from. Now we are doing that. We are partnered with Loch Erin as well. Loch Erin has grants. We do the work for them. That's knowledge that we have. We share with the health department. And we are constantly checking the lake itself because there are homes on that lake that are fertilizing lawns. There are, you know, possible gray water sources, things like that, that might be going into the lake that we don't want. So we are doing that. That data is all being logged in the hopes that there is a pattern that will emerge. And
I have been more concerned about from the lake to England Lake. Where, you know, what is going in to the creek. you know, from these waters. That's what I'm like.
That's what I'm referring to. So looking upstream, we look at the lake, obviously, because it's where we get a portion of our water from. But we're also tracing it upstream and trying to pinpoint if there is a certain area, certain stretch of Wolf Creek, say, where all of a sudden there's a spike in nitrates, there's a spike in E. coli, things like that. As for how that would be addressed, I have no authority for that except to pass it on to EGLE, to pass it on to the health department, to pass it on to Will, to just let people know that this looks like it might be part of the issue. And is there anything we can do to look at? So we are monitoring that. We haven't stopped that. That's not something we need to do or are required to do. We choose to do it because the health of the lake, we are stuck with the lake for now. And the health of the lake is very important and it is very fragile. It will change within a day. And so we need to be very vigilant and we need to be aware of if someone is affecting this, they're affecting the whole city, and we need to figure out why.
That's why I'm like, you know, like, what is coming in? What is it from me? I mean, because I did figure it out. I can't really say, as it was something like the other one in the, I heard a farmer's daughter who happened to be on the news one day and talking about something else, but she had heard to their base and their stuff getting into. And so I'm thinking, wow, okay. So we had big fees going into.
Sure.
So, you know, it's just like, now I'm not excited. You know, cattle, or, you know, cow out there. And I've heard that there are things in there and there's big farmers out there. They have, you know, you know, everything, you know, everything that is running on. And so it's like, and they're scared enough, they have to get their farm hands out there to keep people away, you know, there's obviously something. So that's fine, you know, that's what I'm pretty slow, you guys probably can't install that in anything I'm not. But I'm saying, I'm really curious, and you guys said you talk about the thing on it, and what she has to say about how long, you know, and they can't do anything, can do it, you know, everything goes to see how we can get this taken care of, because I just don't feel that farmers have the right to control it all, you know, because they've got to have their back pockets.
Just make sure to, if you can give me their email before we meet, so we can circle back and see, because we can let you know when we find it. Good, good question.
No, you got it.
Yep. I was also part of the state study, like these here. Was anybody else in about the study? Back in the study? Okay, all right, good. Okay. I got the results of that study right here in my hand. Okay. At the time we organized the study, we're very concerned about what's going on here. And I was in study and there was a great way to open it where you can physically around all these faucets for about a week. Remember that? Yeah. Okay, this burned all this stuff. And stuff. Right? And we got together and decided to do that study in Wayne State University. That was different. All the we did there, plus we did that guys. Yeah. Okay. And there was 33 people that residents here and got in that study. And it took a long time, to just hold it and whatnot. I didn't get my results. And I had to go back, for 3 weeks. Okay, it just took a long time. And unfortunately, because of society, you know, they not enforce it right now, they get started. Right. The organizers of the acts, they're talking about what they can kind of put up where they wanted. Regulate. They wanted to these 10 residents that they could come over and come build a toilet with these results. Okay. And there's only myself and one other person from that study that was willing to go talk. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. So that would be not to choose from the first speech. Okay, there's a lot of things about there's here. If somebody was public, it might influence everybody's lives. And then it's like because of well, let me tell you, I'm not afraid of this. But it's shooting. Like it's not right. I've been putting it in the little. Okay. I'd like to apologize to my folks. Okay. I get really upset when anybody who's Christ on somebody's head. So, I've got to study. I know what I just numbers. That's a, you know, one of the problems. Study days, multiple information, three things, economics, device. Okay. But I am kind of this guy. I get a question with what percentage of water from Adrian is well versus certain.
Currently in 15 to 20% surface, and probably 80 to 85 well. Right.
No, wait, why ask me? All that wants is to tax because so what else? You have to try to so you have to find one of the
Before I answer, what is the question?
it's things that are out, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. It all recognizes that for wells that are making money, the surface water treated as a supply. I was making it clear because I thought it was a little confusing from the World Standards community. He was making it sound like these are deep divided wells, and in actuality, I just want to all these wells, they're all surface water, isn't that correct?
Yeah, but it's like empty service spots.
Well, I'll get back to your question, sir, but so what you're referring to is as far as the surface water treatment regulations go, these are federal regulations. If a city utilizing a surface water source, or there's another category, this is what the federal government calls it, groundwater under direct influence of surface water. Either of those sources, and we got a nearby example, Jackson, city of Jackson, they have a series of wells right in the Grand River, and they're somewhat shallow. Those wells are under direct influence of the Grand River, so even though they're groundwater, they're still subject to the surface water. Now in Adrian, it's a little bit different. They have the surface water out of the Lake Adrian, but the wells here are not under direct influence of surface water. So if they were purely on the wells and were able to get rid of that surface water source, they would no longer be subject to those surface water treatments.
Isn't it correct that actually this subsidies, structure you're talking about? They look at the problem, and it's- so I guess, I'm certain knowledge, think they're all possible under, the federal perspective, next year, the final. But they have to. Actually, builder. You can build that, but it is the good set. Where we have a lot of free tests and everything that are the clarification. And this is one of the free tests on. So, these wells. What are the cell function? Are they service? As you said, or
The wells are currently designated as groundwater wells.
it does be practice, a lot of this institutions there. But is it a part? Is it a difference? Why? And I'm going to talk to their rules and regulations. I'm not going to just further science, but physical behavior.
Clarify your question, they're designated as groundwater.
But what is it?
And they combine with the surface water source, and then they go into a complete treatment plan. That treats it all as if it's surface water. But the wells are designated as groundwater.
And how is it? Yes.
The state designates that, how old are the wells?
2008, so 18 years.
He said there was some filter capacity. The filter capacity.
I don't know what you're referring to, fill capacity.
Should be from, yes.
When you just like, you just like some 10 million gallons of water a day. So there's the filter capacity. So where does the filter capacity come in? The replacement water.
I'm not quite sure I understand your question. The water from the wells comes from the aquifer. And when it gets pumped out of a well, it goes into the treatment plant, and then the groundwater replenishes the well.
Right.
Is that what you're asking?
No. I guess I would be I'll just wait to put my questions or. Oh. Great.
Okay. You got. Okay. Okay. Question for me. Okay, so is bringing out the Simon bacteria, is that a likely toxic substance or a non-toxic substance? We do have an expert here on, or someone expert, but you want to take that one? But I forgot to introduce Ian Smith as with our contaminants, even in EGLE. So just recently, so they can substance. But very important. Okay. What they have is why they have that you test for water. Those all you have to know about concern. Then things happen. Is that any question? Is there?
There's an understanding there are healthy biological levels. There's an understanding of all those toxins that is a risk for humans if they're in blood pressure. So there is an understanding of the toxicity of those. We know what the active level of those substances in our regular state. That we need to take action of whether the supplements. Each time start first. You read almost time back to the same time. It's not enforceable. Or decision making. And for other responsibilities, while we have different it's not always one the same. And us being able to organs fire. We try to solve this and receive it. And that will add to the big one part of the million of the water. The part of the trillion
And it just to clarify, what I bring was, I said early in my prepared statements, remember, there's two different, there's many different species of algae. There's two that are relevant here. The one species of algae are the ones that are giving off those noticeable atrial compounds, but are not. And then I won't say harmless, I'll say that there's no health issues associated with it. And then there's other classes of algae that are the bacteria or cyanobacteria, and they can release compounds that are toxic at very low levels. And that is what we said has been tested since 2021. It's never been detected in the fish water. How often are we doing this?
Weekly,
Those would be weekly?
weekly, and in winter months, it's monthly.
Okay, weekly during the growth season of the algae, and we back it off the monthly in the winter, but there. So go ahead. Yes, I mean, so there's no state or federal regulatory limits yet, but as Ian said, there's health advisory levels. And so if we were to find levels that are to exceed that, we would take action at that point.
When you test these things, let's take an ad plan or ad residences.
So right now we take sets of samples at the tap and at the lake intake into the plant.
Which have to be tested.
The tap at the plant itself.
Wow.
So. Okay, so. Got it. I mean, this problem is just not an city issue. It's still the market. There's a lot of problems in the streets. Right? We're talking about county level, country level. See a lot of here. I see. I don't see my state representative here. State senator. Okay. So we need to think outside the state. Okay, no question about it. Right. I think, people get all excited, it's sensitive, right? I'm gonna stay false. I'm gonna stay false. There's probably. That's it. Okay. But. The probability of the process of all that through down
these things we're talking about is possible. So, what's the other thing to say? We gotta think about. Absolutely, we gotta think outside this town, we gotta think bigger. Okay. Have, in the last few years, have you ever applied for grants? Do you have a grant on staff? Do you have somebody that is hired to write grants? Or a grant for any of our other ones?
Not our experience, no, we don't have anybody else tap into that, we feel that, you know, where we could have, we have been paying on 5 different, so if you're asking with the last 5 years, no, the answer is no. But we've been paying on 5 different, levels, files, what we call them. 2 of them on water side for improvements out of the plans, but not in the last 5 years. No. Those are all starting to run.
Well, there are people listed as some are really commission. You're environmental meetings, people that are writing for it. This is the one that it sounds like playing a lot, right? You know, there's low chance to be putting but I can guarantee this, your chance to win if you don't play this in or right is absolutely zero. Okay. How far away? How the same state. Yeah. So there were 33 in the study. There was 2 studies, 22 of 2019, one study of 14 of 2019. Of the sample of 32 people, shoot, 45 students tested. Species, DNA, we don't know if it's number 5. 4 samples tested. And then top gene was not detected by gene. Okay, so that's all 30%. Okay. This is DNA, PCR, I'm getting science problems. Obviously, there's more problems. Depends on. So that we're talking about 30 down evaluated. Now, so real. Virus is 1, no standard spots for virus is 5. So we're 33%. 33 people that participated in the study. Nearly 50% of us had the top for some of the things we're talking about. My house is the top for the viruses, all these scenarios were taken right at the time. Okay, out of the plant, in my house. Okay. So before I get my will we test the water with UV? Maybe not. Do we currently treat the water with those up? We do not. Do we treat the water with iron peroxide?
With iron peroxide?
Iron peroxide. No. Is reverse osmosis actually effective against the things I'm talking about?
I know. I figured it would take some time. But
Yes, reverse osmosis would be probably not the only technology. It may not be the best technology, but reverse osmosis.
all right, so again, we need to take steps. We need to, get other people outside of our community involved, other, local organizations, county, you name it. We need to figure out what's going on, because most of our problems coming out of this figuring. Absolutely. Okay. So hopefully we can take some steps. Okay. Thank you. I'll let them analyze the sooner or later. I don't know if it's still up. You imagine the thing was stuff at the time of this. And it's why you need different layouts and what's the same to the site. You test it as that's pretty easy when you say that's a good like that I get statement.
I'll let them answer. I want to reiterate for everyone again, all of the compliance samples that are required by the state and federal standard are required to go to a certified lab. We will not accept the samples if they don't go to a certified lab. But in terms of which labs, and I'll maybe let the city answer.
So right now, we're using a lab in Texas, which is NELAP accredited. They do taste and odor testing for many cities throughout the country. They're a certified lab using an accepted testing method. They use a GC mass spec. We chose them for a variety of reasons, one of which is that they give us a very fast turnaround time, so we could react faster. A lot of these labs will give you results in a week. This lab gives us results in 24 hours. I have complete confidence in them. They are inspected, they are certified, they have to jump through all the hoops that any other lab does. They just happen to be in Texas. There are labs that we've used that are in Ohio because they're more suited to our needs. Not every lab exists only in Michigan. They can still be certified and acceptable by EGLE, even if they're not local. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. I have a safe machine I use every night for my when I boil the water in the city. My water stream from city has a rusty brown colored residue left at the bottom of the water chamber. This is very disgusting. I don't feel safe to breathe city water, and I use still water instead. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I've been in the area in about 3 weeks. And there are a lot of fields out there that have set with fecal matter on it, where you can smell it. It's not been turned under. So that fecal matter is washing down into the rivers. Number one. So I don't know who regulates that, but somebody needs to be doing something. Number two, I don't quite understand why we do not have underground water, because the Niagara Aquifer goes right under us. Goes right out to Springs 4 and beyond. And it's been anytime somebody goes in it, it's so hard, they can't drill, they have to run cement to get the flow of the water to stop. They closed the water thing there in the springs twice. It's closed now, so nobody can get water. If it's that strong, why can't we get them over here in Adrian which is not goes through, but Niagara's that way, Onsted's that way. Why do we have so much trouble with water?
I can only speak from the general state level on this, and I'm not
Yes.
familiar with the, what the city's efforts are, but they have done, I'm assuming, some groundwater, investigation and done test wells around. And when they go in and put a test well, they have to have enough capacity and the right quality in order to make it viable. As we've said before, I think the city, I can't speak for you, but I'm assuming the city would want nothing more to get additional well capacity to get rid of using the surface water. But my understanding is the exploration they've done thus far, you know, they haven't found the additional capacity.
Well, it's better for you to be, it starts, goes there,
Well, I mean,
and
If-
it's so powerful, the average person can't stop it.
and I shouldn't speculate, but it could be a matter of quantity. Like a homeowner might need 5 or 10 gallons per minute. What are your wells?
800 or 600 gallons a minute.
800 gallons per minute, so they might not have it.
They do. That's why it's blowing out of the ground, up in the air. It's not just 5 gallons. And I don't understand, have we not done any improvements in the water plant? When was the last time we had some improvements? I mean, major improvements, not just a little filter.
So the last major upgrade, I think, was completed probably 2008. So it's been right around the time that welfare was done. And we've obviously done small improvements and replacing stuff, but as far as major upgrades, it was probably 2008, 7, 8, 9, that time frame. Same time that welfare was on.
See, that's not enough. We haven't done anything since 2008.
Right. Oh, major upgrades, correct.
Come on. That plant is probably what I did. Cause I remember that being there my whole life. And you don't just build something 50, 60, 70 years ago and expect it to stay the same for that length of time. Our house, we have to have improvements. I really don't care about the condition of the water. I'm sorry. I want to be able to drink it. Not be, okay, about 2 years ago, I quit drinking this water. Drinking bottled water, which isn't good for you either. And the other day, I and I hate to take for medicine. I put water in the tap. That is the nastiest water I have ever tasted, and I've tasted it all over the United States. Which tells me they're not, something's not being done. And who's pulling these tests out of the water? Who's pulling the water samples?
All the sampling during, our certified operators plan to do all the sampling, and we do a lot of the testing in-house. Our lab is certified. And the ones that we can't do are sent out to the certified labs.
But you guys are plumbing, right? How come the state don't come in yearly and pull? I mean, I'm sorry, but I get to make it on my way. And I know this town will follow around shit to cover it up.
Yeah, the state does not have 23% directly. Yeah, some cash, and It is, so we have our system, we have certified operators, and if we ever would find out if there was fraudulent samples or something like that, they would lose their certification or something like that. Now, in some cases, we have done split sampling, where if we suspect something is up, when they're scheduled to do a sample, we'll send somebody out, they get their sample, do their thing with it, we'll take our sample and send it to our lab and compare the results. And that is on an unneeded, as needed basis, and we could do something like that.
But no, I'm saying everybody in this town is there. In the past 5 years at least. And you ain't doing it regularly.
And I'll just ask, with some of the early cyanotoxic toxin monitoring done, like they started in 2021, would that have been 100 people doing this?
We started in 2021, I think we had some.
Right, we're not asking if our contractors did it in sample. But that's something we could arrange some split sampling. I mean, from the state, again, this is the way they're doing sampling is the way every other city does it in the state of Michigan. We have no reason to believe that they're doing anything fraudulent, but we could set up a split sample with them to check.
I mean, what do you need with them?
Well, we would find out what percent. The split sample, we gotta do at the same time and location, so we have to coordinate stuff, but they would take their sample. And send it to their lab, we would take our sample and send it to our lab. And then compare the results, and if their graphs are different, like those, something's going on.
I've never swam in the good way for something. My body do not swim in there. My whole life. And I was 67 years old. So that's something for this city and this part. So I want to continue. And now that I'm hearing all these other people that have to give me the answer. And everybody in my family is making a pop. We've had this stomach issue for at least a month. You can't tell me that's because we're sick. But all the antibiotics and shit. It's gotta be for it to be exposed to what water or air. One or the other. So, I mean, the days that I need 4 to 6 weeks of your stomach just feeling like, yeah. Not. Yes, that's good. You don't even want to eat. Poison. Yeah. I have somebody else in here that I have some. I just. Yeah.
We have 4 hospitals, 3 of them are rated and permitted at 800 gallons a minute. We don't get the full 100% out of that. One of them is 600 gallons a minute. So right now, we're running the best we can run that to keep out of the level steady. We're getting about 2.4, 2.5 million gallons a minute.
So, and that gives us 85% of our water. How many months do we need to replace it? Like more, how many more months?
Again, well, I would guess 1 or 2 would maybe do it, but it's whether or not we would be allowed to draw out of that aquifer. That particular one. You guys might have better answer on that. Otherwise, we have to go elsewhere.
Well, then the hospital got enough water to run the hospital out their wells instead of running water out there. The ethanol plant, or whatever that thing is in Wisconsin, it is really west of us and they're enough water and carrying it all the way back to Wisconsin and buying their city water. There was a lot of water. And when they came to our teacher, well, that's going free. all the houses within miles came looking for a way to stop the water overflowing in their yards for miles. And that's in 1227, it's not that. So, I don't know how much developments we're going to have lost, but we're building houses and people all over the county are installing their own individual wells. I can't believe that there is not enough water somewhere here to go on and need a backup of it used when one goes down.
Yeah, it's a good question, and one concept, that I wanted to point out here is there's two different things. You gotta look at. You could put 100 wells in their well field, but it's not just the well capacity, it's the capacity of the aquifer. And the state of Michigan has laws that prohibit you from basically depleting the water out of an aquifer for obvious reasons. And what Will is alluding to is right now they're at the threshold. So that the immediate well field they're in, they're not likely to get approval to withdraw additional water because they deplete that aquifer. So that's why they would have to move, further away from the other well field somewhere.
Necessarily being huge. I mean,
Yeah, I
understand that, but you guys have so much regulation for a well that you consider water that's feeding thousands and thousands of people. I mean, a well has to be so deep that it has to be ground ability so that no surface water gets into it. And then it has to be like crazy. And the water that the first you would not allow us to put it from the well. Yeah.
no, but they have a complete treatment plant where they're removing all the bacteria.
Well, bacteria was just and it's too, right? I mean, yeah. Don't say we share something about water, about all the violations that we have over the water, but I don't know how long. But that there are 33 violations still on record. And mostly have to do with EGLE and or please. Which I don't want to lower the standards and we can't enough water to meet the new standards for EGLE and
And I want to address that. I saw a little bit of that on Verge, and I talked about wanting to dispel misinformation. I went back as far as 2021, that's all the time I had that day, and they have not had any violations here. Going back to 2021 was the last one, and that was for a sampling in the wrong time period. But I want to make it abundantly clear, there's been no detection of E. coli or bacteria in finished water.
So you can take and just for sake of time, I know we said 6 to 8 and the license. I want to know if the license donated. They sold a donated this for the city of Newton so that we can have this year. So we want to be cognizant that and not use their staff to stay tuned since they didn't donate that. And also thank you to our letter. We will pay us discount to come out and make this possible. So we have questions and foods and ask them if they
So, a couple questions. So, is that covering the root rates and all of that?
Ultimately, yes, that all of that goes to the lake. Our lake is the end of the Wolf Creek watershed, then that goes into the river. Yes, so ultimately, it all sites are, yeah.
Just like concerned about the reach back to raising farmers when it comes to like email, hopefully to get that more involved in what's happening isn't just here as a set to be part of the entire water. So action and so you have to hope that future conversations that would be great. The other I guess with our EGLE experts here, you guys, how many times did you say? You all conversation. So this obviously a new conversation that you've had in your 3 years. What are what are the solutions? You guys were here and you would have recommendations for us. What would the recommendations for us to address the concerns that they bring to them?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, from the state's perspective, one of the points I was trying to get across at the beginning is because there have been no primary public health standard violations occurring here, and it is what the data shows, it's been an aesthetic problem. We do not have the authority to say, Adrian, you must do something about it. We want to facilitate a solution. So from my perspective as a state representative here is that this kind of becomes a local decision. It would be ideal if we could find more groundwater, get away from the surface water here. It doesn't, from the exploration they've done so far, doesn't look like that's an immediate reality. So the question I think that is before the community here is, do you want to take on additional loans to do upgrades to the water treatment plant so you can reliably and consistently remove those taste and odor compounds?
You'll still. It has to be paid for, like so much. There's like billions and billions of dollars that shelves just that safety standards for these or we better take this plan. I'll take this study. How's this work? So I'm more surrounded by we have fresh water. And we're looking at data centers that are moving here and suck everything out. What is the lead? Right next to that dam. What's going to happen to that ocean? Really, what is it? I'm going to press the actual through this issue. There's a lot of aquifers fishing. So I guess, you know, maybe this is something I am commissioners and I believe it's still here. Is this something that our regular meeting on like skipping the list or sent? Would you know if you have money numbers to have yet to tell us what are the best, there we go. But these other things together. They could present them and leave the value figure or looking at it. To look at it.
I could give you the better best of my opinion. Obviously, I don't want to play it anymore. I never had. They would love to get rid of that, but I don't understand. I can give you numbers. I don't know how accurate they would be. You're talking with Ryan and Tetra Tech. He'd probably take about a month to really dive into it. But I can put numbers to it. It would just be, I'll do the best I can. Yes, that's the answer. So by July 6th, that would give you something.
Fire licensing, so we have that information for social progress. We know what those options are. And others that we from just on the tax paper, something. So leaders and the labor react or, you know, some way that we're from there. At least to give us those full amounts of things that the cost of those options are. I think that would be good for the public and good for us. And pretty quick with our next meeting. Right. Okay, I'd like to achieve 45 minutes to go over the conditions in Denver, Colorado, talking about water. Okay, so I'm talking about feed lines, how they start looking
water out there all the time. I know that. I have been able to go ahead years, I've been going from being simply without some of business issues. I have to make a decision if I'm going to move here from the beginning. It's, really, you know, small residential place has to be build a civic center with grants, public and private donations, and public and private donations. What you do is you have an opportunity here because you have a part of years. And the receipt. Okay. You have an opportunity to have people who can focus this energy to help you as a citizen of the community. And you need to form a committee. You need to get the mail from that to the gentleman here on council. You need to find out and research all of this stuff. You need to find data. So that if the government grant comes forward, you have all the information you need to write that grant. A grant writer researches every single day. If they're not writing a grant, they're researching. And if you're waiting on the government grant to come in inbox, you may get it. I have seen me 3 months sometimes to write 2 grants and 20 people. And I'm talking about $6 million. $20 million in water people plan donation and government money and private foundations. I would suggest that you sit down with people who come from this town, the Lenawee Foundation, and you talk with them, and you talk about coupons and participation. May have come in with stuff. Okay. And you match that, you match $200. You make a plan. You have to make a plan. If you put a building for arts, or if you want to build a civic center, you have a plan. You have an architecture. You have a whole plan. Okay, it is doable. And I know what the city people are saying. You don't have the staff, run your staff now. Well, here you go. Let's form a committee. You wants to be, you see, get a plan, you had fun. You could ask, village property tax, just water. You could open a door about some of the foundation just for water. That was all. Okay, just the way it's doable. And now it looks to me like my energy is here to do it. Maybe what comes again, please make sure that you send everything for the license, the readings, and you can have to see. Sorry, this is the best that you respond. I was worried that you have some sugar from the people in here. It's a really great thing. You really
Okay. Make sure that we're lined up here because you're a lot taller than I am. And we're going to actually step this way just a little bit.
All right. Right here.
Hello, everybody. We are here at the Alliance Center. Sorry that took a little bit longer. I am here with Mr. Vukasovic, who is the candidate currently running against Mr. Tim Wahlberg for the 5th Congressional District here in Lenawee County and Michigan. So, Mr. Vukasovic, I know you kind of came in a little bit later. What were you able to take away, though, from the town hall that we have?
Well, I mean, it's obvious that people have a real issue here with the water. You should be comfortable drinking the water that you're paying for, your municipal water source, your well water. That should be safe. It should be effective. You should have confidence in that. Back in 2016, during the first Trump administration, they lowered the actual numbers, or the parts per billion, or trillion, that are required for safety for our well water, especially with the cyanotoxins. And it's really important that we understand that those policy decisions to lower, to raise the amount, I should say, that are considered safe, actually has an impact down the road. It has an impact on how much effort and how much money is spent on making sure this water is clean. It has an impact on people's health as they're drinking the water. It has an impact on people's confidence in the water that they're getting. And so it's really important that at a federal level, we are enforcing these issues, that we're taking it seriously, that we are making sure that the water quality is going to be safe, that we are not lowering that quality with policies just to make it easier or safer for certain parties involved. But it's also important that we enforce the rules that we have. So if somebody's putting on fertilizer during the wintertime when it's banned, we need to be enforcing it. If somebody is putting in manure on a field and not turning it under and allowing that to run off into a creek like Wolf Creek, for example, that's feeding the Adrian Lake in the water system, that we're aware of that and that we can enforce that. I mean, it should be fair, it should be consistent, it should be enforceable, and people should have confidence that when they take a drink of water here in Adrian, it's going to be safe to drink, it's going to taste good to drink, and that they can serve it to their family.
So if if you were to get in, what would be a step you would take to try to address this issue here in Michigan? Because obviously this is a statewide thing. We had Flint just a few years ago, and we heard echoes of that here tonight. And now we're looking at Adrian. And from what I heard of one resident say, this has been going on longer than I've been around. And I'm 38. So that's
Right.
a long time. So
Well, I'll tell you this, it's the current systems that we have in place, the programs that are in place to help communities like this, oftentimes they're geared towards smaller communities, 10,000 people or less, or they're put on a priority basis that because of the loopholes that are there, communities like Adrian might not qualify right away, or they may just be pushed back to the back of the line. So what's important is that we get, programs up and running at the federal level that can and will, serve these communities and help them get the infrastructure that they need to provide clean water in a timely fashion without making them wait for 40 years in order to do so. But it's also making sure that we have enough staffing in place and enough consistency in place to enforce the rules that are on the books. And that means, I don't believe in large government or small government, but I do believe in the right size government to do the job. And it appears to me that we just don't have enough people to do the job when it comes to enforcement over issues that might be contaminating our water. And then thirdly, I think that it's really important that we are seriously addressing moves to raise the threshold of what we deem to be safe for contaminants in drinking water. Government is supposed to be proactive in these things. Your legislator should be thinking ahead and not just waiting till something becomes a disaster for a community to then react to it and try to backfill and mitigate the circumstances.
well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. And we also got to start getting this stuff
Absolutely.
cleaned up. So
Thanks a lot. I
thank you again.
appreciate it.
Thank you for showing up, man. Let me
Thank
grab that mic from you, though. I want to see if I can get another resident here. I recognize this face. Thank you very much.
Well done. I really appreciate it.
I have been wanting to meet you for like ever.
Oh, well, I'm glad we had a
Because
chance.
I'll be right back, folks. Hang on.
When you.
have one more guest coming on. I'm getting him over right now. This one is a citizen, just so everybody's aware. All right, and we are actually in this camera here. Again, everybody, I have Pat what was that? I'm sorry.
Pat Ulanowitz.
Pat Ulanowitz. He was one of the gentlemen that was speaking during the meeting, and he had the Wayne County study that he had in his back pocket. So, can you tell me about what drove you out here tonight?
It was kind of like I'm saying, right before COVID, we had the problem, but that it was physically you could see the brown water coming out of the tap water. They got everybody excited, right? And there was a big push to get that resolved, right? And then COVID hit. We tried to keep it together. The volunteer group of activists got the Wayne State study to get the grant to do the independent water study separate of the Tetra Tech one that the city paid for. That got done in the middle of COVID, and then it took many years for that to get back. And so, just like everything else, it's not at your doorstep. People lose interest in it, right? And that did happen. Unfortunately, I have a memory and I understand history. And then just recently, we had some more problems with the water. And, so it kind of like kickstarted us back up again. So that's why I'm here.
Do you think that you were heard tonight? Do you feel like this was a productive meeting to have?
Yeah, I think it was a very productive meeting. I mean, there was some brutal honesty handed out tonight.
Yes, it was.
Right? Some brutal honesty. A lot of people don't want to hear the things that I said that came out of my mouth. I'm sorry. But they need to be said.
I will say we had some audio issues because it was really echoey in here. And so it was picking up on the stage very nicely. But when we were in the crowd, the echoes were overloading the mic. So can you kind of give me an overview of some of the things that you were talking about, some of that brutal honesty?
Okay. So some of the brutal honesty I'm talking about is, it's just not that, and the people that, they get the water, they immediately notice the taste and the smell, right? But how does it get smelly and distasteful? It tastes like you're drinking a blended mushroom in a thing of water, right? Stuff like that. Okay. The reason why is because, and this is a problem not only with our little system here, but even in the western basin of Lake Erie, where it's so south, where they have algae blooms quite a bit. They have the same problem. And quite frankly, it is, at least in my opinion, and it's with some of the data that I saw, I'm not a scientist or anything, but a lot of this is due to phosphorus and agricultural runoff. Okay. Getting in there and getting this algal bloom to keep going. At least in our little micro system here that we have, we dam up the Wolf Creek drain to make Lake Adrian. Our lake is not made up of the River Raisin, okay? And on that Wolf Creek water system that goes all the way up to Loch Erin and stuff, we have up to 11 concentrated feeding animal operations within 2 miles of that drain. And we need to make sure that these operations are funded well enough, are policed well enough to make sure that their runoff isn't coming into our lake where we suck service water off of. we need enforcement. We need to get those people some grants to get better technology to help with this agriculture runoff. Okay, so this isn't my biggest thing I had to say tonight was this isn't just an Adrian City problem. It is literally like a Lenawee County problem, right? We need to get the county involved. I don't know, was there any commissioners here tonight?
Oh, most of them were here. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. So some of the commissioners were here. I'm glad that they heard us. And we need to get some of our state and federal elected officials. I talked about writing grant money. This is all the things that we got to do that we haven't done. I mean, even tonight, we talked about it tonight here that, there's grant money out there available. You have to do something to get it. If you do nothing, you're going to get nothing. Okay. And so, it's kind of a baby step to, hopefully we raise some eyebrow tonight. Hopefully we can get some people to volunteer in this activism. We talked about a community organization. I'm willing to participate in that like I did the one back in COVID. And I hope some of the people that are looking out here also would engage in that. Okay. And, this whole water thing, it's not a partisan thing. Clean water, is essential for life, period. And, we can't have this thing going on anymore. So I hope that the people get motivated after what they've seen here tonight.
Thank you very much for stopping in with me. I appreciate it. I'll grab that back.
Yep,
Milo.
you need that.
I probably will, yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Lenawee County. My name is Brian Fish for WLEN, Lenawee's local news station, and we will be here throughout this water crisis.